I won't mix business with pleasure, you get it? Tun said as he walked away, leaving Zainab on the bed of their hotel room in Paris. Zainab stood by the bustling stalls of the Lagos market, her eyes gleaming as she scanned the vibrant fabrics and colorful prints. The sound of hawkers shouting their prices mixed with the laughter of customers and the chatter of excited voices. She was no ordinary teenager. Zainab had a deep obsession with fashion. She dreamed of designing clothes that would make the world take notice. But her reality was far from glamorous. She could only afford to buy the cheapest fabric and accessories. That was until she stumbled upon Tunde, a young tailor, working at his tiny, makeshift shop near the market's corner. His shop was small, surrounded by a mess of thread spools, fabric scraps, and sewing machines. Tunde had been struggling to make a name for himself, his talents unnoticed by the masses. When Zainab noticed his work, her curiosity piqued. His designs, though simple, had an undeniable uniqueness. "How much for a custom dress?" Zainab asked, her eyes studying him intently. Tunde looked up, surprised by the question, but his face brightened as he realized she wasn't just another customer. She seemed different. A spark of recognition flickered in his eyes. They shared an instant connection. "Depends on what you want," Tunde replied, his voice soft but confident. "I can make anything, just give me a picture, and I'll bring it to life." Zainab grinned, her mind already racing with ideas. This was the beginning of something bigger, something neither of them could have imagined. Zainab could hardly wait to see what Tunde would create. She had a vision, a stunning dress that combined traditional African prints with modern elegance. She showed him a rough sketch of what she wanted, her fingers tracing the fabric in the air. Tunde studied the sketch carefully, nodding as he mulled over the design in his mind. "I can make this for you," Tunde said. He set to work immediately, his hands moving with practiced ease. Zainab watched in awe as he transformed the plain fabric into a masterpiece. Every stitch was perfect, every cut precise. The dress started to take shape, and with every step, Zainab's excitement grew. By the time Tunde finished, it was evening, and the dress gleamed in the dim light of the shop. Zainab held her breath as she tried it on. The fit was perfect. She felt like she could conquer the world. "You've done it," Zainab whispered, her voice full of admiration. Tunde smiled modestly, but there was a glimmer of pride in his eyes. This was more than just a dress. It was a symbol of what they could achieve together. The dress caught the eye of a local fashion influencer who had come into the market. She spotted Zainab wearing it one afternoon and immediately pulled out her phone to snap a picture. Within hours, the photo was all over social media. People began tagging Tunde's shop, asking about the designer behind the unique creation. Suddenly, his name was spreading, and Zainab's heart raced with excitement. "This is it," she said, almost breathless. "We're going to be famous, Tunde. People are talking about your work." Tunde, who had never imagined being in the spotlight, looked overwhelmed. Fame wasn't something he had ever actively sought, but it was undeniable that their creation had struck a chord. However, as the attention grew, so did the pressure. Clients started flooding Tunde's shop, demanding custom-made pieces. Zainab pushed him to take on more work, feeling the weight of their newfound fame. But Tunde began to feel the strain. The joy he once felt in creating was now clouded by the never-ending requests and the constant need to keep up with the expectations. As the orders piled up, Zainab and Tunde's once easy partnership began to fray. Zainab had always been the driving force behind their success, but Tunde was growing weary. His talent was undeniable, but the demands of the business were taking their toll. He found himself questioning whether this was the path he truly wanted. "I can't keep up with this pace," Tunde confessed one evening, his voice heavy with frustration. "You push me into this world of fame, Zainab, but it's too much. I just want to focus on creating, not chasing trends." Zainab was taken aback. She had always believed in the dream they were building, but she hadn't realized how hard it was on Tunde. She tried to explain how important it was to keep the momentum going, to not let this opportunity slip away. "If we don't act now, we'll miss our chance," she argued. But Tunde wasn't convinced. He longed for peace, for the simplicity of working without the pressure of the spotlight. The tunde between them continued to simmer. Zainab began to take on more of the business side of things, organizing shows and speaking to clients, while Tunde spent long hours sewing in the back of the shop. Though they were physically close, emotionally, they were growing farther apart. Zainab's obsession with fame started to drive a wedge between them. "Why don't you ever listen to me?" Tunde asked one evening, his frustration evident. "I told you, I need space to create, but you're turning this into a business, and I don't know if I want that." Zainab, whose focus had always been on the bigger picture, didn't fully understand his point. "This is our future, Tunde. We're on the brink of something huge, and you're letting your doubts hold us back." The more they argued, the less they seemed to understand each other. The love they once shared for the craft was now being overshadowed by ambition and misunderstanding. One day, a renowned fashion designer visited Lagos and, hearing about Tunde's work, invited him to showcase his designs at a major fashion event in Paris. Zainab was overjoyed at the opportunity, seeing it as a golden chance for them both. But Tunde wasn't so sure. The thought of leaving behind everything they had built in Lagos weighed heavily on him. Zainab was insistent. "This is your dream, Tunde. Paris is a place where designers make a name for themselves. We can't let this slip away." She was already making plans to travel with him, envisioning a life of glamour and success. But Tunde hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was ready to leave everything behind, especially when things felt so fragile between them. He knew that this opportunity could either solidify their success or break them apart entirely. Tunde's mind raced as he weighed the decision before him. The opportunity to showcase his designs in Paris could change everything for him. Yet, it came with its own set of fears. He didn't want to leave Lagos, nor did he want to leave Zainab behind. His heart ached as he thought of how much she had poured into their shared dream. "Paris is where dreams are made," Zainab said, her eyes bright with hope. "We have to go. This is our chance." But Tunde couldn't shake the thought that maybe they were rushing things. He needed time to think. "I'll go," Tunde said finally, after what seemed like an eternity of silence. Zainab's face lit up, but deep down, Tunde wasn't sure if he had made the right decision. The allure of fame seemed irresistible, but it felt like a gamble. The night before their departure, Tunde stood in front of the mirror in their modest Lagos apartment. The weight of the decision pressed on him. Zainab was already packing their things, bubbling with excitement. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and Tunde tried to push aside his doubts. On the flight to Paris, Zainab couldn't stop talking about the possibilities. "Imagine the world seeing your designs," she said, flipping through a fashion magazine. "We could take the world by storm, Tunde." Tunde nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. This wasn't just about fashion. It was about their relationship, too. They had come this far, but could they survive the pressures of fame? He wasn't so sure. Paris was everything they had dreamed of. The city oozed glamour, and the fashion show was the highlight of their trip. The grand runway was filled with models wearing Tunde's designs, and the crowd cheered as the lights flashed. Zainab stood proudly by his side, whispering words of encouragement. As the show unfolded, Tunde saw the admiration in the eyes of the audience. But when the designer of the event approached him after the show, Tunde couldn't help but feel a pang of unease. "You're talented," the designer said, shaking his hand. "But you need to adapt to the market trends. Fame requires flexibility." Tunde felt as if he had been handed a lifeline and a curse. Fame was a double-edged sword. Could he retain his artistic integrity and meet the demands of the industry? The pressure mounted. The next few weeks were a blur of photo shoots, interviews, and high-profile events. Zainab reveled in the spotlight, eagerly speaking to reporters and striking poses for photographers. Tunde, on the other hand, began to withdraw. He missed the quiet of his shop in Lagos, where he could create freely without the constant prying eyes. One evening, after a particularly exhausting event, Tunde turned to Zainab. "This isn't what I wanted, Zainab," he said quietly. "I wanted to create not be paraded around like an object. Zainab paused, surprised by the bitterness in his voice. She had been so caught up in the whirlwind of fame that she hadn't noticed how much it was affecting him. As time went on, the cracks in their partnership began to deepen. Zainab's hunger for fame grew stronger, and she pushed Tun harder to produce more designs for shows. But Tun found himself resisting. He was losing the passion he once had for fashion, and the pressure to conform was suffocating. One afternoon, Zainab stormed into the studio where Tun was working. "Why aren't you more excited about all of this?" she demanded. "This is the opportunity of a lifetime." Tun looked up, his expression weary. "I don't want to be part of this world, Zainab. I want to create, not perform." Zainab was taken aback. She hadn't realized just how far apart they had drifted. They were no longer a team, and the love they once shared was beginning to fade in the face of their differing goals. The pressure of their separate ambitions reached a tipping point. Tun had been staying up late, working on new designs, but the exhaustion was beginning to show. Zainab, meanwhile, continued to push for more visibility and recognition. She was constantly meeting with influencers, arranging interviews, and dreaming of the next big step. One evening, as they sat in their hotel room, Tun finally broke. "I can't do this anymore, Zainab," he said, his voice shaking. "This isn't what I signed up for. We've lost ourselves in this dream of fame." Zainab's eyes welled with tears, but she refused to back down. "This is our chance, Tun. If we don't take it, we'll be left behind." But Tun was done. He stood up, grabbed his bag, and walked out of the room, leaving Zainab alone with her dreams of fame. As he left, he wondered if their relationship could ever be mended. Zainab was left staring at the empty room, the silence around her deafening. Tun's departure left a hole in her heart that she didn't want to acknowledge. She had been so focused on the future, on the promises of fame, that she had ignored the one person who truly mattered. Without him, her dream of stardom felt empty. Meanwhile, Tund wandered the streets of Paris, unsure where to go or what to do. He had never felt more lost. His heart longed for the simplicity of Lagos, but his pride prevented him from turning back. The more he walked, the clearer it became. He couldn't return to that life with Zainab unless they had a deeper understanding of each other's goals. Days passed, and both Zainab and Tun felt the weight of their separation. Zainab, though surrounded by flashing lights and camera lenses, couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. It was a strange irony. She had spent years dreaming of fame, but now that it was within her reach, it felt hollow. One morning, Tund received a message from a fellow tailor back in Lagos. It was a simple message offering him a chance to showcase his work at a local event. He debated whether to go back, but the thought of returning to the familiar comfort of his shop filled him with hope. Meanwhile, Zainab spent hours staring at her phone, scrolling through the pictures from the fashion show. She saw how alone she looked in the photos, always smiling, but never truly happy. Maybe it wasn't fame that she wanted. Maybe it was the partnership she had lost. Tund made up his mind. He packed his bags and bought a ticket back to Lagos. He knew he needed to reconcile with Zainab, but he also needed space to rebuild his own sense of self. The fashion world wasn't for him, at least not the way it was currently shaping up. As he boarded the flight, he thought of the quiet nights spent stitching in his small shop, feeling content with the process of creation. Zainab, on the other hand, was stuck in a whirlwind of events and appearances. Yet, deep down, she knew something had to change. She couldn't keep living for the applause and the cameras. She needed to find a way back to what they once had, the shared dream of creating beautiful things together. Tun returned to Lagos, but it wasn't the same city he had left. The streets were the same, but he had changed. His eyes no longer saw everything through the lens of ambition. They now saw the beauty of simplicity. He went straight to his old shop, unsure of what to expect. When he walked through the door, he saw the remnants of their past. The sketchbooks filled with designs, the fabrics they had once dreamed of turning into clothes. It was all still there, waiting for him. But this time, it was different. Tun felt ready to reclaim his space, not just physically but emotionally as well. Zainab hadn't heard from Tun since his abrupt departure. Days passed, and the tension in her chest grew heavier with each unanswered message. She finally decided to pick up the phone and call him, though a part of her feared what he might say. "Tun," she whispered when he picked up. "I'm sorry." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, but then Tun's voice came through, steady and calm. "I needed space, Zainab. I needed to remember why I started this journey in the first place." Zainab's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to forgive her so easily. "I want to fix things. I want to go back to how we were. I miss the partnership we had." Tun paused for a moment. "I miss it too," he admitted. "But we both have to be honest with each other about what we want. Can we do that?" They agreed to meet the next day. Zainab, her heart full of hope and trepidation, walked toward the small shop in Lagos where it all began. Tun was already there, sitting on the steps, waiting for her. The weight of everything they had been through hung in the air between them, but neither of them was willing to let go. "I've thought a lot about what you said," Tun began, looking up at her, "and I've realized that fame isn't what matters. It's the work. It's the passion for what we do." Zainab nodded, her heart swelling. "I get it now. I got lost in the idea of being famous, but what matters is the craft. It always was." They embraced, and for the first time in weeks, Zainab felt at peace. They had work to do, but it would be done together, for the right reasons. With renewed purpose, Zainab and Tun began to work together again. They decided to focus on what they both loved, designing clothes that told a story. The pressure of fame seemed to have dissipated, and now it was all about the artistry. They spent days sketching, sewing, and bringing their ideas to life. Word soon spread that Tun was back in action, and the orders began to trickle in again. But this time, the work was different. They turned down most of the flashy requests and instead focused on creating pieces that represented their vision. The collaboration felt like it had when they first started, pure, simple, and full of passion. Zainab and Tun weren't just partners in business. They were partners in life. After weeks of hard work, they unveiled their first new collection together. It was a mix of traditional African fabrics with contemporary styles, designs that celebrated their heritage while embracing modernity. Zainab's eye for detail and Tun's skillful tailoring complemented each other perfectly. They hosted a small showcase for their loyal customers and friends. The event wasn't as grand as their Paris show, but there was something more genuine about it. The guests were moved by the beauty and authenticity of the collection, and their support filled Tun and Zainab with pride. "People can see the heart in this," Zainab said, smiling as she looked around the room. Tun nodded, his eyes reflecting the same sense of fulfillment. "It's not about the fame. It's about the work." As the collection gained attention, Zainab found herself reflecting on her past obsession with fame. She had been so focused on the idea of success and recognition that she had overlooked the true meaning of their work. But now, things felt different. She wasn't chasing the spotlight anymore. She was chasing her passion. She shared her thoughts with Tun one evening as they sat together in their workshop. "I was so blinded by the idea of fame," she admitted. "I wanted to be seen, to be known. But now, I see that the joy comes from the work itself." Tun smiled, his hands steady as he worked on a new design. "I think we both learned something important. The fame and attention, it'll come if it's meant to. But the work, the process, that's what matters." Just as things seemed to settle into a comfortable routine, the temptation of fame resurfaced. A major fashion magazine reached out to feature Tun's designs, offering them an opportunity to showcase their collection in a prominent publication. Zainab's eyes lit up at the prospect. It was the kind of exposure they had always dreamed of. But Tun hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was ready to dive back into that world, where everything was about appearances and meeting expectations. He had finally found peace in focusing on the work, not the fame. "Do we really want this?" Tun asked, his voice uncertain. "I don't want to lose what we've gained." Zainab understood his hesitation, but she also knew how important this could be for their business. It's not about the fame this time, Tunde. It's about getting our work out there. We're ready for this. They decided to move forward with the magazine feature, but this time, they set boundaries. They would only showcase designs that felt authentic to them, no compromises. The photo shoot was scheduled, and once again, they were thrust into the world of high fashion and media attention. As the day of the shoot arrived, Zainab felt a nervous excitement bubbling inside her. She had come full circle, from the girl obsessed with fame to someone who understood its fleeting nature. But with Tunde by her side, she knew they could handle whatever came their way. The photo shoot went well, capturing the essence of their collection, bold, beautiful, and undeniably original. When the magazine hit the stands, it was a huge success, and their names were once again on the lips of fashion lovers. With the magazine feature came a fresh wave of attention. Orders came pouring in, and the pressure to maintain their success began to rise. Zainab threw herself into the business side of things, coordinating with suppliers and meeting with potential clients, while Tunde stayed in the workshop, focused on creating. The balance they had achieved was beginning to feel like a distant memory. The work was becoming a machine, and the spark that had once made it all so special was starting to fade. One evening, as they sat in silence, Zainab couldn't help but feel a nagging sense of doubt. "Are we losing ourselves again, Tunde?" she asked softly. Tunde looked up from his sewing machine, his brow furrowed. "Maybe," he admitted. "Maybe we are." The next evening, after another long day of work, Zainab and Tunde sat down together for the first time in weeks, no longer focused on the business. It was just the two of them in their small workshop, with the hum of the sewing machine in the background. They both knew things had to change. "I've been thinking," Zainab started, her voice hesitant, "about how we've been running things. I know we've been busy, but it feels like we're losing the essence of what we wanted. This business is running us instead of us running it." Tunde nodded, putting down his tools. "I felt the same way. We need to find a better balance, or we're going to end up resenting everything we've built." They talked long into the night, their conversation drifting between business decisions, personal goals, and what they truly wanted from their lives together. By the end of it, they both agreed that something had to give. They couldn't allow success to push them further apart. The following morning, they made a pact to slow down. They decided to limit the number of orders they accepted, focusing only on projects that aligned with their creative vision. It wasn't about expanding anymore. It was about making sure the work felt genuine and enjoyable. They also promised to spend more time away from the workshop, reconnecting with each other outside of their work. The plan was simple but necessary: to put their partnership above everything else and not let the pressures of fame or success tear them apart. Tunde suggested they take a week off to visit a small village outside Lagos, where they could recharge and reconnect with their roots. Zainab agreed, feeling a sense of relief she hadn't felt in months. It was the reset they both needed. The trip to the village was everything they had hoped for. Surrounded by nature and the simplicity of village life, Zainab and Tunde found peace. They spent their days walking through the fields, talking about their dreams without the noise of the city or the distractions of their business. At night, they sat by a fire, listening to the stories of the elders in the village. Zainab was reminded of the importance of heritage and the traditions that had inspired her love for fashion in the first place. Tunde, too, found comfort in the quiet and the connection to his own roots. For the first time in a long while, they both felt at ease with each other and with themselves. By the time they returned to Lagos, Zainab and Tunde had a fresh perspective. The trip had given them clarity, reminding them of the importance of staying grounded in their values. They weren't just designers. They were storytellers, and their designs had to reflect that. They returned to their work with renewed energy and purpose. But this time, they were more selective about the projects they took on. They turned down big contracts from corporations that didn't align with their creative vision. Instead, they focused on collaborations with local artisans and small businesses, building relationships based on mutual respect and shared goals. Zainab found joy in the process again, and Tun felt the creative spark return to his hands. As the months passed, their business flourished, not because of the fame or recognition, but because of the work. Zainab and Tun had found a balance that allowed them to focus on what mattered most, creating beautiful designs that spoke to their hearts. Their partnership grew stronger as they worked side by side, each supporting the other in ways that felt meaningful. The orders still came in, but they weren't overwhelmed. They had a system now, one that allowed them to enjoy their craft without losing sight of their personal connection. They made time for each other, for their family, and for the things that truly mattered. Zainab realized that fame had never been the answer. It was the love and respect they had for their work, and for each other, that made everything worthwhile. One day, as Zainab and Tun sat together in their workshop, they discussed the future. Their business was growing steadily, and they were in a position to expand, but only if they could do it on their own terms. They didn't want to compromise the essence of what they had built. "We've learned a lot," Tun said, looking at Zainab with a thoughtful expression. "But we can't forget why we started this. If we expand, we need to make sure we don't lose what makes us unique." Zainab nodded in agreement. "It's not about being the biggest anymore. It's about staying true to what we love and doing things that feel right." After much deliberation, they decided to open a small boutique in the heart of Lagos, one that would allow them to showcase their designs in an intimate setting, without the pressure of mass production. It was a decision they made together, knowing that it would give them the space to continue creating while still growing their brand in a way that felt authentic. The opening of their boutique was an exciting milestone for Zainab and Tun. They had envisioned a space that was both stylish and intimate, reflecting their journey from a small shop in Lagos to a place that celebrated their shared vision. The boutique was filled with their latest designs, colorful, bold, and deeply rooted in their African heritage. On opening day, they invited friends, family, and loyal customers to experience the new space. The air was thick with excitement, and Zainab couldn't help but smile as she watched people admire their work. It was more than just a store. It was a symbol of everything they had built together. "This is just the beginning," Zainab whispered to Tun as they stood side by side, watching the guests browse through their pieces. Tun smiled, his heart full of pride. As their boutique began to gain attention, so did the demands on their time. Zainab found herself juggling more responsibilities than ever before, handling customer inquiries, dealing with suppliers, and attending meetings with potential investors. Tun, on the other hand, stayed focused on the creative side, designing new pieces and keeping the boutique's inventory fresh. At first, everything seemed manageable, but the increasing workload began to take its toll. Zainab noticed that Tun was becoming more withdrawn, his passion for creating starting to fade under the pressure of keeping up with demand. "We need help," Zainab said one evening, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "We can't do this alone anymore. If we want to keep this going, we need a team." Tun nodded, though a part of him was hesitant. He was protective of the business they had built, and the thought of delegating their vision to others didn't sit well with him. But Zainab was right. They couldn't grow without support. Zainab and Tun began the process of hiring a small team to help with the day-to-day operations of their boutique. They interviewed several candidates, looking for people who shared their vision and understood the importance of quality and authenticity. After much deliberation, they hired a few assistants to manage the store and handle customer inquiries, as well as a part-time accountant to help with finances. The new team members were enthusiastic, eager to be part of something meaningful, and Zainab felt a sense of relief. But Tun remained cautious. He wanted to ensure that their vision wasn't lost in the process. "We need to make sure the new people understand the heart of what we're doing," he said, his concern evident. Zainab reassured him, "We'll make sure they do." As the team settled in, Zainab and Tun faced their first real challenge, trust. With more hands on deck, it became necessary to relinquish some control, especially over the operational side of the business. Zainab was quick to embrace the change, delegating tasks and letting her team take charge of certain responsibilities. Tun, however, struggled. He was used to managing everything himself, and it was difficult for him to step back and trust others to carry out their vision. His hesitation created tension between him and Zainab. "I can't do everything, Tunde," Zainab said one day, frustration creeping into her voice. "If we want to keep growing, we have to trust the people we've hired." Tunde didn't respond immediately, but he knew she was right. It was time to let go, even if it meant relinquishing some control. With a full team in place, Zainab and Tunde started to focus on new opportunities. They discussed expanding their brand beyond the boutique, perhaps launching an online store or collaborating with international fashion outlets. But they both agreed that any future growth had to stay true to the values they had cultivated: authenticity, creativity, and quality. They also began to explore new ways to give back to their community. Zainab, inspired by the support they had received from their customers, suggested they create a mentorship program for aspiring designers in Lagos. Tunde agreed, seeing it as a way to share their knowledge and help others who had dreams like theirs. "We've been lucky, Tunde," Zainab said one evening as they sat in their boutique, looking out over the bustling city. "It's time to help others find their own path." Tunde smiled, his heart full. "I couldn't agree more." Months passed, and their business continued to thrive. The mentorship program was a success, bringing in young talent who were eager to learn. Zainab and Tunde worked closely with the new designers, teaching them the skills they had honed over the years. Through it all, their partnership remained strong. They had learned to balance their personal lives with the demands of their growing business, and their love for each other had only deepened. They weren't just partners in business anymore. They were partners in life, in creativity, and in their shared vision. One evening, as they closed the boutique for the night, Zainab turned to Tunde. "Look how far we've come," she said softly. Tunde smiled and took her hand. "Together, we've built something lasting, and it's only just beginning." Zainab and Tunde's hard work had not gone unnoticed. One morning, they received an email from a well-known fashion retailer in Europe who had come across their designs and was interested in featuring them in a new international campaign. The email was brief, but the offer was clear. They wanted to bring Tunde's designs to an entirely new audience. Excitement and nervousness swirled inside Zainab. This was the kind of opportunity they had dreamed about, the chance to showcase their work on a global stage. Tunde, however, was more cautious. He had grown comfortable with the way they were doing things locally, and he wasn't sure if they were ready to expand again. "I don't know, Zainab," Tunde said, looking at the email. "Are we prepared for this kind of exposure?" Zainab smiled, her determination shining through. "We've come this far, Tunde. It's time to take the next step. We've built something special, and now the world needs to see it." After much discussion, they agreed to move forward with the opportunity. It was a huge step, but they knew it could open doors for them both creatively and professionally. The preparations for the international launch were intense. Zainab and Tunde worked tirelessly, ensuring every detail was perfect, from the designs to the presentation. They wanted their work to stand out, but they also wanted it to reflect their roots, the authenticity they had built their business on. The launch event was held in a grand venue in Paris, and the room was filled with industry professionals, influencers, and media from around the world. Zainab and Tunde stood nervously backstage, waiting for their collection to be revealed. As the models walked the runway wearing their designs, the crowd reacted positively, and Zainab and Tunde exchanged proud, relieved glances. This was the recognition they had worked for, but it wasn't just about the applause. It was about showing the world what they stood for. After the event, the orders came flooding in. Retailers from all over the world expressed interest in carrying Tunde's designs, and the media attention was overwhelming. Zainab basked in the excitement, thrilled with how their work was being received. Tunde, on the other hand, felt a mixture of pride and unease. The spotlight was brighter than ever, but it was starting to feel like they were losing control over the pace of their success. "Do you think we're ready for all this?" Tunde asked Zainab one evening, as they sifted through a pile of emails from potential buyers. Zainab paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I think we're ready, but we have to stay true to what got us here. If we don't, We risk losing everything. Tun nodded, his anxiety slowly easing. They had built this empire together, and they were in it together for the long haul. Despite the success, the pressure of their rapidly growing business began to take its toll. Zainab threw herself into expanding their operations, hiring more staff, arranging shipments, and ensuring that the new global demand was met. Tund, on the other hand, felt the creative strain. There was so much pressure to produce more designs, but he struggled to maintain the quality and originality that had made them successful in the first place. One evening, Tun spoke up. "Zainab, I need some time. The pressure is getting to me. I feel like I'm losing touch with what I really want to create." Zainab looked at him, her face softening. "I understand. Maybe we've pushed too hard. We've come a long way. But we need to remember why we started this in the first place." Together, they decided to take a brief break from their business to regain their focus and recharge their creative energy. Zainab and Tun took a few weeks off to reflect on everything they had achieved. They traveled to the quiet village they had visited earlier in their journey, seeking solace and inspiration. There, in the peaceful surroundings, they rediscovered their love for fashion, not as a means of fame or profit, but as an art form that told a story. During their time away, Tun found the peace he had been craving. He sketched new designs inspired by the beauty of the natural world around them, reconnecting with his roots. Zainab, too, felt a sense of calm as she reflected on how far they had come and the values they had built their brand upon. When they returned to Lagos, they were renewed and ready to take on the next chapter of their journey, but this time with a clearer vision. Zainab and Tun returned to their boutique, but with a new sense of purpose. They had decided to scale back their global expansion and focus on what truly mattered: their creative integrity and the local community that had supported them from the start. They reworked their business model to focus on sustainable fashion, sourcing materials from local artisans and prioritizing ethical practices. The goal was no longer to chase after fame or endless growth. It was to create meaningful pieces that made a positive impact. Their renewed sense of purpose was reflected in their designs, and soon their customers noticed a change. The boutique flourished once again, but this time it wasn't just about the business. It was about staying true to their roots and their shared love for fashion. With their renewed focus on authenticity and sustainability, Zainab and Tun decided to expand their mentorship program for young designers in Lagos. They wanted to provide a platform for the next generation of talent, just as they had once been given a chance. They reached out to local schools and fashion organizations, inviting aspiring designers to join the program. Soon, a new wave of young creatives was learning under Zainab and Tun's guidance. The mentorship program became more than just a business initiative. It was a way for Zainab and Tun to give back to the community that had supported them from the beginning. The pair worked side by side with the students, helping them develop their own unique styles, while instilling the values of authenticity and ethical fashion. One day, an unexpected visitor arrived at the boutique, Adebayo, an old friend from Tun's early days in the business. Adebayo had gone into a different line of work, but his passion for fashion had never faded. He was now looking to re-enter the industry, and he wanted to collaborate with Zainab and Tun on a new collection. Tun was hesitant at first. He wasn't sure if bringing in a third party was the right move. However, after a few meetings, he began to see Adebayo's vision. The three of them shared a deep understanding of the industry, and their combined talents had the potential to create something special. "Let's give it a shot," Zainab suggested, her excitement evident. "If we can work together, it'll be amazing." The collaboration with Adebayo breathed new life into the boutique. The new collection was a fusion of traditional African textiles and contemporary styles, incorporating elements from all three designers. The collaboration quickly gained attention, and soon it was featured in local and international fashion magazines. Zainab, Tun, and Adebayo worked tirelessly on the collection, learning from each other and pushing their boundaries. It was a perfect blend of their individual styles and visions. For Zainab, the partnership was a reminder of how important it was to collaborate and share knowledge with others. Just as things were going well, a new challenge arose. A large, well-known global fashion retailer reached out to Zainab and Tunde with an offer to sell their designs in stores worldwide. While the opportunity seemed like a dream come true, Zainab and Tunde hesitated. They had spent so much time and effort building a brand rooted in authenticity and local support. The idea of mass production and global distribution felt at odds with their core values. "We've worked so hard to keep things true to who we are," Tunde said, his voice uncertain. "Do we want to risk losing that by going too big?" Zainab paused, considering the offer. "We can negotiate, Tunde. We can make sure they respect our values. If we do this, we do it on our terms." After much discussion, they decided to proceed with the offer, but they set clear boundaries about production limits and the materials they used. They would expand, but only if it aligned with their values. As the global retailer began carrying their designs, Zainab and Tunde's brand grew exponentially. The recognition was overwhelming, and their designs were now seen on runways and in stores around the world. It was a dream come true, but it wasn't without its challenges. The demands of international retail were different from their local business, and they struggled to balance the expansion with maintaining the authenticity they had worked so hard to preserve. Despite the challenges, they managed to find a balance. They maintained a close relationship with their team, making sure everyone understood the vision behind the brand. They remained committed to ethical fashion practices and worked with local artisans to source materials whenever possible. One afternoon, as Zainab walked through a high-end store in Paris featuring their designs, she realized something. The designs, though beautiful, felt disconnected from the heart of their work. She longed for the days when everything was simpler, when the designs were made with love and care, not with an eye toward global demand. She called Tunde, and they agreed to meet. "I think we've gone too far," she admitted. "This global expansion is amazing, but I don't think it's the right fit for us anymore. We've lost the essence of what we started." Tunde agreed. "We've created something special, but we need to get back to our roots. Let's focus on the people who believe in us, not the fame." Zainab and Tunde made the bold decision to scale back their international expansion. They chose to focus on local markets and collaborations with smaller, like-minded designers and artisans. They moved away from mass production and began creating limited edition collections that were handmade and unique. The decision to shift their focus allowed them to reconnect with their original vision. They returned to their roots, working closely with their team and community to produce designs that were both beautiful and meaningful. The changes they made were met with excitement from their loyal customers, who appreciated the return to more authentic, handmade designs. Zainab and Tunde work with local communities to support small businesses and sustainable practices, ensuring that the foundation of their brand remains strong. Their mentorship program continued to thrive, and they used their success to empower others in the fashion industry. Their boutique became a hub for young designers, and the lessons they had learned along the way were passed on to the next generation of creatives. As Zainab and Tunde looked back on their journey, they realized how far they had come. From their humble beginnings in a small shop in Lagos to their international recognition, they had learned countless lessons about success, failure, and staying true to themselves. "It hasn't been easy," Zainab said one evening as they sat together, reflecting on their journey. "But it's been worth every challenge. We've built something meaningful." Tunde nodded, his heart full. "We've built it together, and that's what matters most." Zainab and Tunde's brand was now more than just a business. It was a symbol of what they stood for: creativity, authenticity, and community. They continued to work with local artisans, support young designers, and prioritize sustainability in all their designs. The boutique became a place where people not only bought clothes but also shared in the values that Zainab and Tunde had worked so hard to uphold. "The heart of the brand isn't the designs we create," Zainab said during an interview with a local magazine. "It's the people we work with, the stories we tell, and the impact we make." As the years passed, Zainab and Tunde began to explore new horizons. They opened another boutique in a different city, expanding their reach while staying true to their core values. They also began working on new fashion lines, experimenting with different materials and styles, all while keeping sustainability at the forefront of their designs. Through it all, they remained focused on their mission to create meaningful, beautiful designs that told stories and made a positive impact on the world. Zainab and Tunde's story became an inspiration for aspiring designers everywhere. They had started with nothing but a passion for fashion, and through hard work, dedication, and a commitment to authenticity, they had built an empire. But their success wasn't just measured in profits. It was measured in the impact they had on their community and the fashion industry. "We didn't just build a brand," Tunde said during a speaking engagement. "We built a legacy, and that legacy will continue through the people we've helped and the work we've done." As their success grew, Zainab and Tunde continued to give back. They donated a portion of their profits to causes that align with their values, including supporting education and empowerment for young women in Africa. They also continued to mentor young designers, ensuring that the next generation would have the same opportunities they had. After years of hard work and dedication, Zainab and Tunde found a moment of peace. They took a vacation together, traveling to a remote beach where they could relax and reflect on everything they had achieved. "We've come a long way," Zainab said, watching the waves crash against the shore. "But I'm so proud of what we've done." Tunde smiled, taking her hand. "We've done it together, and that's all that matters." Years later, as they looked back on their journey, Zainab and Tunde saw how far they had come. Their boutique had become a landmark in Lagos, their designs a staple in fashion circles around the world. They had achieved everything they had once dreamed of and more. But for them, the real success was the love they had for each other and the work they did. They had built something that would last far beyond the fame and recognition. They had built a legacy that would inspire generations to come. As Zainab and Tunde entered the next phase of their lives, they began to think about the future. They started preparing their mentorship program to be taken over by the next generation of designers. They were ready to pass the torch to those who would carry their legacy forward. "It's time," Zainab said, smiling as she looked at the new batch of designers. "Let's see what they can do." Zainab and Tunde continued to work side by side, knowing that their bond was unbreakable. The challenges they had faced had only made them stronger, and their love for each other had deepened over the years. "Together, we've created something incredible," Tunde said, looking at Zainab with admiration. "And we'll keep creating, no matter where life takes us." As they open a new chapter in their lives, Zainab and Tunde remained committed to their passion for fashion, their love for each other, and their mission to make the world a better place through their designs. Their journey was far from over, but they knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything that came their way.
Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification if you enjoyed the story. Thank you for watching. See you next time.